Hello, and welcome to The Wave from Ocean Reef, a podcast about the flow of life today and how you and I might ride with or swim against it. I'm Dan Meyer, Chaplain-in-Residence at the beautiful Ocean Reef community in Key Largo, Florida, and here's The Wave for today. Have you ever noticed the amazing capacity of some people to misread reality and misjudge potential, but with complete self-assurance? An authority once declared that the advent of the railroad would require the construction of many new mental asylums. Why was that? Well, because people would surely be driven mad with terror as locomotives rushed by at the insane speed of 15 miles per hour. In the year 1870, a speaker addressing an assembly in Indiana declared, "I believe we're coming into a time of great inventions, when men will fly through the air like birds." "That's heresy," exclaimed an esteemed clergyman. "God has reserved flight for the angels." Reverend Wright then went home and told his two sons, Wilbur and Orville by name, how things would always be. In 1899, Charles Duell, the director of the U.S. Patent Office, petitioned the president for the closure of his department. He wrote, "Everything that can be invented has been invented, Mr. President." In 1923, Robert Millikan, a Nobel Prize winner in physics, declared, "There is no likelihood man can ever tap the power of the atom." In 1927, the head of Warner Brothers Motion Pictures asked, "Who the heck wants to hear actors talk?" And that same year, the prominent all-star Tris Speaker said this of a fellow baseball player who had given up pitching to concentrate on his batting. Speaker said, "I tell you, Babe Ruth is making a big mistake." But my favorite statement is the one that the Beatles' John Lennon had engraved on a plaque over the mantel of the home he built for his mother near the cliffs of Dover. The words were those he'd heard from his mom almost daily while growing up. They were, "Playing the guitar is just fine, John, but you'll never be able to make a living doing it." I miss a lot too, to be honest with you. I can easily see the glass as half empty or too quickly focus on the faults of others. But I enter each new year wanting better vision. I want to be someone who sees the grand potential in individuals and in circumstances. I would much rather be a visionary than a naysayer. In this regard, a young man once came to interview for a job as the pilot of a Mississippi River steamboat. Doubtful that such a youth could possibly understand the dangers of the river, the interviewer famously asked if the man knew where all the rocks were. "No, sir, I don't," the applicant replied. "But I do know where the rocks aren't." He got the job. How often do we approach difficulties in our families or our workplaces or our social circles, perhaps, by focusing on the size and sharpness of all the rocks out there? We pour our energy into fixing blame or identifying flaws. We think a lot about how bad things are in so many areas. What might happen, however, if we put our energy instead into steering towards those areas where we know there aren't any rocks? A wise man once said, "Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, lovely, or admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things, and the God of peace will be with you." Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8. This, I think, is where becoming a visionary really starts. Any idiot can spot where the problems and perils of life lie. But the people who navigate most creatively and happily through life are those who develop the discipline to discern not all that is wrong, but to think about whatever is true, noble, or right. So what might it look like to have that kind of focus? as we move down the river of this new year. First of all, look for the unseen possibilities in the face of some of your present problems. For years, a man named Fred ran a troubled shipping business. One day, however, he stopped asking, "What's wrong with the way we're doing it?" and posed instead a far more generative question. What would a perfect delivery system look like? The answer to that query became the company we now know as Federal Express. I know of a woman who dealt for years with the pain of a terrible loss. Day after day, she asked herself the same question: how can life ever be the same? And then one week, I met her with the sparkle of hope in her eyes. "What changed for you?" I inquired. "The question," she said. I began to wonder what it would look like for me to perfectly employ my experience of loss to help other people in pain. And it birthed a new life and a whole new ministry for this woman. Maybe yours will be a different quest. For example, what would a volunteer job look like that perfectly used my gifts? What would it look like for me to be the very best friend that somebody ever had? What would my marriage look like if I unilaterally modeled perfect love for my spouse? What would it look like if I were to perfectly use the rest of the time that I have left? What would be the characteristics of a perfect relationship with my kids? Start picturing the perfect solution instead of fixing on the painful problem, and watch how much more of life flows toward the good. Then secondly, try picturing the potential in the face of some of the difficult people in your life. I'm not talking about sugarcoating others' flaws. But what if we deliberately took our eyes off of the rough edges, the annoying habits, the obvious limitations of someone with whom we struggle? And what if we made it our business instead to thankfully name each day and to affirm to their face when possible at least one thing in her or in him that was admirable, excellent, or praiseworthy, as Philippians 4 suggests? We might be amazed to see how that person's assets come to define their future and our experience with them. God, I'm convinced, has this sort of vision. He pictures the perfect possibilities in all the problems we have. He pictures the perfect potential in all the people we know. Where will we put our focus in the days ahead? Will it be on the rocks or on the river? Will it be on the past or on the future? How can we change the very questions we're asking to help take us and others toward all of the good places we might yet go? That's today's Wave from Ocean Reef. If you know of others who might appreciate this sort of content, I hope you'll pass it along or encourage them to find me on Spotify, Apple, or other podcast outlets. Until next time, I'm Dan Meyer, hoping that the flow of life is good for you.